This is 2OF Entertainment.
Welcome to the Lost Dollar Business Club, where we talk about business, and not just business. We talk about what makes businesses go up and what makes businesses go down. If you're interested in businesses, this is where it is. We talk about the global economy. We talk about global politics. We talk about everything and anything business related that affects your life on a global scale as well as a local scale. And don't miss after the show, Lost and Found.
Well, here we are. What can I say?
The joy.
Yeah. I've enjoyed pushing all the wrong buttons today, it would seem, but there you go.
It's always tough to get tech when we're all in our 90s or something like that. First off, anybody that's back on from last week, some really good conversations with Tom, and we have another guest this week. So welcome back to the Lost Dollar Business Club. And Nick was away last week. He was busy doing stuff, which we'll let him explain. But just today, very briefly, we're going to be talking about winning in business and lost in life. And, I've spoken to a lot of guys in the past who I call it a successful but unfulfilled. And that unfulfillment might mean in your marriage or your fitness or your health or family time or something else. So we've got a lot to talk about that today. But Nick, welcome back, brother. What was going on with you last week? Tell us.
Thank you very much. Well, I was fighting the bureaucracy of home affairs, so applying for a new passport. So that was interesting. And this last week was a combination of another 6-week wait, where you have to wait for your documents. You've got to apply for them, and luckily they've got an online portal, so I'm really, really thankful for that. You don't have to go in multiple times, but you've got to go in to get your ugly mug taken and fingerprints done. And then so I've applied for that. So hopefully do some traveling in the next couple of years. So
where's the top 3 places to travel, Nick? Or if the people don't know, where are you based now and where do you want to go to?
Currently in Johannesburg. So businesses all in South Africa. Joburg is normally the place for business. So all the major businesses are all got their head offices here. And I travel to Cape Town. So I've kind of got two bases. Cape Town's the other base, and spend some time over there. But from a business and expansion point of view, we're looking a lot to the US at the moment, and then in Europe, mainly Amsterdam, where old Dave is sitting. So that's kind of where we're seeing the expansion at the moment, and particularly in the creative and digital sides of spaces. But we're also finding the fact that you've got to be in front of clients. Everybody thinks they're a digital marketer. Everybody thinks they can do creative. And you've got to be in front of clients to be able to show them what they do, and the fact that you're not, just another bot,
Yeah.
Which is what we create. So.
As you say that, I have a friend who works with companies on, let's say, differentiation, which I think is important in especially in crowded markets. But definitely. I have this thing now of I bet there's so many people that position themselves as experts to get clients, and then they just get ChatGPT to do it all, or AI. Yeah. Whereas if you're in front of someone, you can't sit there and be like, "Oh, just check this and type."
It's going to quickly, exactly.
And just quickly, where in the US? Because to state the obvious, very different places, very different. Texas to as one kind of end of the spectrum, we're very different to other places. So anywhere specific in the US?
Yeah, so we've actually registered our LLC in Texas. We've done a little bit of research with regards to where, from a tax perspective and things like that. So Texas seemed to be quite a good one, and some of the large clients that we deal with are based in Texas. Clients, we've got a couple of clients in Michigan as well. So it's a little bit of, it kind of seemed to be the median one to go for, and the best tax wise, and also close to clients. And then we've got some North Carolina stuff as well. So a little bit of all the places. But I enjoy. I'm super keen to go. So exciting.
It's interesting with the US. Next week we will have a chap on. We're going to talk all about crypto next week. And obviously in the US, Donald Trump has a huge bearing on what's happening in crypto at the moment, because him launching his own kind of, call it meme coins. And obviously for the US or any government, if they want to pass random legislation that makes it better or worse for crypto, they can just do it generally at the drop of a hat, if that makes sense. So be very interesting next week to talk about crypto. And David, have you traveled to the US? I've been to New York, I've been to Miami, I've been to Ohio for the World Championships, San Francisco, San Diego. I've done a real kind of mixture of it. What about yourself?
Yeah, I've been a few times. Yeah, did a few computer shows. Yeah, mostly in Las Vegas. I had a client, or I had a supplier in Minneapolis, so I used to fly to Minneapolis, and then from Minneapolis, I used to go on a gambling flight into Las Vegas and get there 2 or 3 days before the show started, so I could get a gambling holiday at the casinos, which was a lot cheaper than going at the same times that the shows were on. Better rooms, and I was paying like $40 a week or something a night, something stupid, as opposed to $400 it was like 2 or 3 days later. So.
I've never been to Vegas. I don't know if Nick has, but David, what is Vegas like? Because I read, and this might be total bullshit, that obviously they're running out of water.
Totally mad. Yeah, but they run out. Well, I mean, yeah, it's Vegas. I mean, they got their own artificial lakes, and yeah, I mean, I don't gamble. I mean, I've never gambled. That's not. I don't hold any. There's no moral reason why I don't, other than the fact that I've never seen a poor bookmaker. But yeah, so it's not like, oh, naughty, won't get into heaven sort of gamble. But it just doesn't. Just think to myself, well, it's a business, you know, and it's stacked against me. But but I used to go and always stay in the casinos because they were the cheapest place to stay with the best food. Yeah,
good stuff
to say, but it never ceased to amaze me because I used to get on these really early flights from Minneapolis, like 6 a.m, and it would be full of pensioners. And as soon as they got off the plane, they're straight. I mean, like we're so used to, you know, having to wait a week and a half to get your baggage from the carousel, you know. But because it's an inland flight, but you still got to wait. It's like Las Vegas is famously that you have to wait slightly longer to get your suitcase because the whole hall is surrounded where the carousel is with one-armed bandits. So people just come out, get the nickels, and you know, and they're feeding all these machines, waiting for the bags to come up.
David, sounds like you're spreading dangerous conspiracy theories there that they're deliberately manipulating you. They wouldn't do that, David. They're honourable people.
Well, it's a business. It's a business, you know. Yeah, it's a fascinating business, but still a business.
Matt, perhaps we could talk about gambling at one point because I have some. I've never gambled, but I have some interesting stories of friends who've lost their fucking shirt on gambling and realised when it's too late that, you know, it's too late, if that makes sense.
Fast women and slow cars, and that's what fast women and slow horses, I think.
Wasn't it? I think it was it George Best, the famous Playboy footballer, that said, you know, I spent millions on women and champagne and the rest I've wasted.
Yeah.
So that was a great one. But well, let's bring Alan in, who's our guest. I'll introduce him once we brought him in. So let's press the button.
Okay.
And bring him in.
Let's bring in Alan.
As if by magic.
As if by magic. Yeah.
Alan, welcome to the Lost Dollar Business Club. And for people that don't know, we've known each other for a while. You primarily work with, I would say now, middle-aged women, helping them with relationships, and you've written some great books, etc. And the reason I thought it would be interesting to talk to you is, number one, you've had a portfolio career, which I think when I say portfolio, I mean you haven't just done one career. You've very, very good brain with engineering and stuff like that. And also your kind of pivot to being the love engineer and podcasting and everything. But also today we're talking about winning in business and lost in life. And I think from a lot of men I've spoke to over the years, it's easy to have done loads and loads of business stuff, which is great, but to the detriment of relationships and what's going on that side. So tell us, like in a nutshell, of like you know, where you live, what you do, and what's going on in your life.
Yeah, I live in the delightful town of Evesham in Worcestershire, which is pretty much in the centre of England for those who are in this area and don't know it. And what I do, I'm a dating and relationship coach known as Love Engineer. And I help women that are successful in business or career, but they get stuck when it comes to the relationships because it's a different world.
Which is, I would say, I mean, we spent some time together the other week. It's a real different market because I don't know whether David and Nick would agree, but what I said was, I think with relationship coaching, you're much more likely to have a woman want to work with you than a man. I don't know many men. I'm not saying that men don't need relationship coaching, but I bet a lot of them couldn't see the value in working with someone and paying them. But going back to previous career, we mentioned just before we went live, like you've worked in some really interesting kind of sectors. So tell us, I know it's like submarines, warships. Tell us about that.
So, yeah, I was trained in HGV mechanics when I was 16, although by the time I actually started college, I'd probably done half an apprenticeship because my dad had a fleet truck. So I wasn't out with my mates at the weekends. I was playing with trucks and bicycles, tractors, you name it.
Yeah.
So I've got a wide array of experience. I think the smallest thing I've fixed is a lawnmower, and the biggest thing is either a naval frigate or an Australian road train.
Yeah, so it's a big
anything in between.
It's interesting because I would say, and I put me in this bracket, I'm rubbish at fixing things, and I'm going to take a wild guess that Nick isn't great either. I'm just putting it out there, and I think that's one of the problems with, when I say youngsters of today, I would say, I'm in my 40s, but we at school weren't really taught much about how to fix things, which is why you're so dependent on everybody else now, which is a problem. But let's get on to it, because the title was Winning in Business, Lost on Life. And I wrote this down because I said it, I wrote an article months ago where it said success on paper means nothing if your personal life is fucked. And I know that's a very technical way of putting it, but it's true. So, from my point of view, there has to be a balance. And sometimes in life, you're in like seasons. Sometimes you might need to work more on your business, and your family life maybe kind of lessens the amount of time you're with them, and vice versa. Nick, how have you managed to balance work life, personal life? Because if you want to be successful in business, you probably have to put some long hours in at some point.
Yeah, I think it's been a challenge, Anthony. I think it's especially during the pandemic times when it was super tough, especially in the creative space. Like literally, we just didn't have any job, right? Like no jobs, right? So we kind of had to grab onto whatever we did. So it definitely has taken a huge toll on the family life, and it's really tough to hold those in balance with one another and try and figure out how to keep the glass balls in the air, as the saying goes. How do you balance those, and just not let the one drop. But it definitely has taken a toll, and then health as well. I think that's the other big one, right? Like the family side is definitely one, but then the health is another big one, which is really tough to do.
I wonder whether it what's the term I'm looking for? Like it bleeds into your performance at work if things at home aren't going well, and that's why you probably can never have a perfect balance. And actually, I interviewed a guy on my Whole Man Academy podcast a few years ago, and he said very much. He was from Texas actually as well, and he'd launched a business, and he said there is no balance. There's work-life rhythm, and he said sometimes if I'm working on a big project, I have to go to my family, and I think this is really important for people that will be listening. You go to your family and say, listen, Daddy or me as a husband has got this big thing. It's going to take more of my time, but what do you need from me that is enough whilst I'm working on it? Is it that one day a week I finish early to go out with the family? What is that one thing that I can do whilst I'm building? Because people have to understand that if you're building a big business or you're working something, hopefully that's for the whole family, but you might have to take some time away from it. David, what about you? How have you managed to balance that kind of being busy with work? I know these days you have like a bit more of a cutoff.
Yeah, it's strange because on the one side you have the opportunity to, let's say, to earn more money, to offer more things, material things into a relationship. The bigger house, the bigger car, the better holidays, etc., etc. But the other side is the fact that, for me, it was very much that there comes a point where it's normal to work 60 hours a week. And the issue is that everybody else goes to work. And then when they come home from work, they can kind of switch off from it, or, it's 5 o'clock and they close the door and off they go. And it's incredibly difficult for anybody who's never done it. But if you have a relationship with someone who's also an entrepreneur, then you hardly have any time for a relationship, let alone to do your business. So you need to there are so many people that I've met where the business is starting to take off, and then it happened to me as well. The business started to take off, and then the pressures, the personal pressures, the family pressures just got so big that you were kind of forced. You were being forced to make a choice, but there was no choice to be made. Only the partner think, well, it's either me or your work. But we've got this far because I'm working so many hours a week or doing so much. So
it's a good one.
If you're successful in business, you're probably pretty shit with your first relationship. That's probably your first marriage or living together with somebody, because you come out the starting blocks together in a relationship, but you're miles ahead in so many other things and miles behind in the other bits as well. So trying to find someone to align to that is very difficult. Probably need a love engineer to do, I think.
Well, just thinking, it is key if you've got a partner. I saw a great meme a while ago, which was on like Instagram or whatever, where it had a guy who was like looking at his phone, and his wife is sitting on a sun lounger in a very expensive hotel with expensive watch on, and she's kind of moaned at him about that. And he's like, listen, if you want that stuff, you have to understand I have to fucking do this stuff, which, might be a crass way of looking at it. But I understand if you want to have a certain lifestyle, you might need to allow, your partner to be working longer to provide for that. Alan, what would your advice be to, because, primarily men, I would say this, in relationships, we're never going to understand women anyway. So what advice would you give on balancing the business and what women might need?
Well, the first that have come up while you guys have been talking is, firstly, let me ask you a question. When you go for a walk, which is more important, the left leg or the right leg? Because you got the relationship or family leg and you've got your business leg. They are both important. Trouble is, if you don't lift one off the ground ever, you don't go anywhere. If you don't put any on the ground, then you just fall over. And something else that comes up for me is something I was told years ago, and that is everyone treats life like a barbecue, especially men, because they have their business sausage, they have the family sausage, the children's sausage, the social sausage. But reality is, it's more like a stew. And if one of those sausages is off, they all taste off.
It's a good point. And that's where I know we talked the other, was it a week or two ago, about juggling. And the sad thing is, I have seen men who have built a really good business or a career in a job, and they've let their marriage go to shit. And then they will end up paying for that further down the line because, and for me, I've got an article that I'm writing at the moment about it, but one of the hardest things for me is men that have got a career or a business and their wife ends up leaving them and she takes the kids. Because then you don't get to see your kids, and you'll look around and think, was that really worth it? Nick, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting one there, Anthony. I think because the point you made a little bit earlier is it's about the conscious intention of, Alan, just to your point, when you pick up the one leg, pick it up and put it down consciously, and then pick up the other one and put it down consciously, and kind of, as you said, that rhythm. And I think that example is definitely one that is really, really useful in going to the family and saying, hey, listen, I've got this. There's a project that's coming up. There's going to be a sort of a more intense period where I need to work. The challenge is, and it speaks a little bit about the entrepreneur side and that sort of drive within us to deliver. And Dave touched on it, is that, it starts becoming a little bit like a snowball that's come off a mountain, right? Like it starts really small, but as it gets bigger, it just gets worse. And so the challenge is, that one project then becomes one plus another one plus another one. It's like, okay, but hang on, when is the family going to get your time? And so it really is, and it it's so easy as an entrepreneur to say, oh, but yeah, just hire someone to fill the space. And it's like, yeah, but we don't have the money just yet, or whatever that might look like. But it does take a lot of conscious effort to ensure the fact that there's conscious attention across the board. And that works for business as well, right? Because applying yourself in business consciously, both from a strategic point of view as well as how the business is growing, can then help with the life. And I think Alan, I think you touched on it quite clearly. There's the fact that you have to, however you apply your attention, will affect everything. Because if you apply it badly in business and you just focus everything onto business, the business will succeed. Well, mostly will hopefully succeed based on the fact that you're applying so much attention and pressure there. But if you had to apply conscious attention and pressure there, and then consciously move the attention to the various parts of your life, it would be better. I think that talks to your point, Alan, is the more you apply the attention specifically, it'll be better.
Yeah, very much so.
I'll ask Alan a question, and Nick, and maybe not so much David, but my problem is, and again, I have 3 kids who are all under 8 and a partner, and we home educate them, all that stuff. But I cannot switch off from work, and that's not when I say that, I don't be like as if I'm like, oh no, I can't switch off. Like all the time, I'm always thinking of stuff and hooks for posts and people to interview and ideas for the network, which Alan is part of. And when I say that, like I people could say that's a bad thing, but I can't help myself. So when I'm with my kids, especially when they're younger, I'm with them, but sometimes I'm literally I'm off in another place because I'm thinking of something. I don't know if you have that as well, Nick or Alan.
Yeah, switching off from the business that you've created yourself is about as easy as switching off being a parent. Yeah, they might grow up, they might leave home, but you're still their parent, and they're still going to be tugging on your heartstrings, and hopefully as they get older, a bit less on the purse string. But we will see.
Nick, thoughts?
I think, it's a tough one, but again, like Anthony, I think particularly for myself, like I try and switch off very specifically to actually take that time out, because I've been through a couple of burnouts through my life, and I've really learned the fact that it just it doesn't work well for you. The body is this beautiful machine that just keeps going and going and going, and eventually it's like, look, you're not looking after me. I'm going to shut you down. I'm going to shut you down totally, hook, line, and sinker. You literally, and at that point in time, you literally you're forced to shut down. So I've been in that situation. And so my response to you is, yeah, I've experienced that, where you're literally just on all the time. The challenge is it just doesn't work. It doesn't work well for you, or at least didn't work well for me. And so I don't get it right all the time, but I try and take those moments definitely through the day to pause for a couple of seconds, breathe, actually put air in the body, and then consciously choose how I spend my time, meditating, going into sort of, strategic thinking for the next sort of couple of days. Like I really do try that, and that then just centers the mind away from this, what I call the monkey mind, just running around all the time. And it gives really good ideas, right? But it's a lot of energy. It saps a lot of energy.
Before I ask David, Nick, what did burnout look like for you? And what I mean by that is, I remember reading, well, not even reading, I was speaking to someone that was linked with the former CEO of Lloyds Bank, which is UK's biggest bank. I think they've got about 66,000 staff, which I find an interesting number, but that's another rabbit hole to go down. But I remember with him, he basically had worked, and someone came into his office, and he was literally kind of frozen, and had just, his body just said stop, and pretty much obviously had to have support and help, and was off for a while and came back. But what did that look like for you? Because burnout for different people can feel and look different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. So I think one of the big ones in my life was I actually got blood poisoning, and there was no specific reason why it happened. And I think that the body just literally shut down. So I literally had blood poisoning. It was probably about a month or so. I was literally sort of in bed, not being able to do anything, and that's because I drove the body so hard. And for my not learning my lessons, probably about 7 or 8 years later, ended up with sort of, reflux and shoulder pain, which is all kind of connected in hospital for that as well. And I sort of similar sort of thing where I ended up on the couch. I literally just couldn't move at a point in time. So, and it's because the body is just like, look, you've abused me enough now. I'm done. I'm out. And it literally forces you to shut down totally. So it's been through a couple of those, and I now start to recognize the overwhelm, because the body and the mind are great. They just work straight through overwhelming feelings. And as men, I love what you're doing, Anthony, because as men, it's kind of like, big cowboys don't cry. Pull up your socks. You're not allowed to cry in sort of spaces, and that's not about the showing of emotion. It's about the fact that we just got to pull ourselves together and just do what needs to be done, right? And actually, it's not about that. It's about being able to say, hey, listen, my pot feels a bit full here. Like I can feel it hitting over here. Just calm down, go away, take a couple of days, and communicate to the team around you. And that's where the challenge lies. Like, hey, guys, listen, feeling a bit rough at the moment. Give me a day or two. I'll be back on my A game, but just give me some time.
It's really important, and that's why we're going to ask David next. But I always look at it, especially for men, like we have like a silent pressure cooker, and often the pressure will build up, and then I would say, and I have done for years, at some point the fucking lid will blow off. So you've got to work out how to let that steam out in a controlled way before it explodes, which then looks like suicide, drinking, drugs, violence, self-harm, whatever it is. David, what about you? Because it's funny, although we're on the podcast, I don't know about much of your previous career. Like, have you had those moments where you're trying to really struggle to juggle the life and the work and the business and everything?
I think you just summed it up in that last statement. What was it? Was it burnout, drink, drugs, whatever? Just go back to, before I answer that, just go back to one thing that Alan was talking about. He was talking about sausages, right? And it's really interesting because women always refer to men's memories, which are always related to food. Strange. That's something else to think about. So we as men always relate our memories to food, what it tasted like, where we were, but anyway, irrelevant. So it's interesting, the sausage thing. But I had cancer in 2001. Then I realized, like, the only really important thing, my whole life was my black book. I was wheeling and dealing and getting deals together, licensing deals mostly for software on all platforms, and which was all about networking and all about wheeling and dealing. And then I had cancer, and that took me out for probably, after the op and everything, probably for a good 7 or 8 months, and my black book just evaporated. And then I kind of realized that the only really important thing in life was what I was seeing in my kids' eyes. That was the only most important thing, that they were happy to see me. And the rest, you have to learn to live with it. You're a professional. You're like a professional sportsman. You're going to get injured at some stage. And you either give up and take a different course in life, or you do something slightly less than you were doing before. So not 60 hours a week, but 58. Or you just sort of have to deal with that injury that you're taking with you. I'm not saying that you shouldn't share it, quite the contrary. But I've said on many occasions, that the best therapist I ever had, there's the mirror in my bathroom in the morning, because that's the only one that answers the questions. And it's really difficult, simply because you're doing something that you really love, that gives you great joy, but is incredibly selfish, and it makes you selfish. It makes you time selfish. And you have to have someone who understands that or accepts it.
That is key.
That is key to it. And sometimes it works. I mean, it worked for me for 30 odd years, and then all of a sudden it stopped, literally from one day to the next. And that was my marriage gone 33 years later. But but that was accumulation of things from her side of what I was doing and the times and stuff that I was investing in. Yeah, more in myself and more in what I wanted to do than probably in the relationship.
It's a really interesting, you say about when you're working and then relationships obviously get affected. And again, I saw that a lot in the city, where I understood some guys were not just working long hours, but you had to take clients out as well. So even for me and some of the guys I work with, you'd work all week from 6:45 in the morning, which meant you were leaving the house at 5:45-ish in the morning.
Yeah, stupid o'clock in the morning.
3:00 in the morning, and obviously most of the time it'd be fucking dark anyway. And you'd get home no earlier than 6 to 6:30. But 1 or 2 nights a week you might have to go out with clients, and then some weekends you'd go to Amsterdam, Ibiza, skiing, which again all sounded great, but they're not your. I mean, some of them were my friends, but you might just be fucking knackered that weekend, and you want to see your partner or your kids, but you're going to go away, and you'll fly back on Sunday night and literally go to bed and get up and go back to 6:45, starting again the next morning.
Yeah, but why were you doing that then? Because on the Wednesday you had enough money to buy another Audi, or or a Ferrari or whatever you wanted. I mean, it's all money driven, isn't it? That sort of stuff.
It was so you could give the government more money, so they could spunk on unnecessary things. To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I had a real issue with that. I had that as well when I was working for someone, just work, and I thought, well, this is crazy. If I'm going to burn myself out, at least I'm going to do it for myself. Because it didn't seem to make sense.
Giving some of it to other people. Alan, how about you? Because I know it's, again, worked in kind of physical jobs. And I know we were at you were at one of my events a few weeks ago where your friend Andy, who works on the submarines, but said obviously that's a very physical job. And he's getting a bit older and said like he doesn't want to have to keep doing that, fairly strong physical job for a while.
Yeah, when I was younger, I remember being told a statement where if you want to know what life's going to be like in 5-10 years time, see what the people who've been doing what you're doing 5-10 years longer than you have. I thought, that's silly. Then I went to work the following week and thought, he's been here 10 years longer. He's been here 20 years longer. They're all bloody miserable. And the bodies are all broken. So I don't want to be that. I don't know what the answer is yet. I've got a few years to find out. But if I said relationship coaching would be the answer, I'll be one from what they were smoking. But certainly the toll on your body doing physical stuff for 40 to 60 hours a week, every week, is mad. And then if you're doing what I was doing as well, where you spend somewhere between 10 and 25 grand in tools and equipment to make somebody else money, it makes even more sense.
Yeah.
And you know what? So Alan is, I can't remember. Have you met James Fagan? I can't remember because I've run so many events. I forget which men have met. But there's a guy in my network in the membership that Alan's in as well. He's a prime example of this, and I've been working with him because he is a luxury kitchen fitter and therefore commands a very decent fee every day. But of course, it is hard physical labor, and of course, you can't work from home. You have to be traveling to different sites. And this is a good reminder. He's working on a project which is external to this, which would give him a much better life, I would say, and more freedom, but it's involving a lot of monetary input from him. So he's working on this project to make as much money as possible to pour into the other one. But he is basically working 6 to 7 days a week, has to drive maybe 2 hours to get to where he needs to go to do it, and 2 hours home, and he's getting home at 9 or 10 at night and then getting back up at 4 in the morning to go back again. And my concern and my problem there was, I was like, you won't be able to sustain this for too long, and you're fit and strong, and therefore your body will do a lot more than it probably should. And then one day your body will go, like Nick said, it will just pull the pin, and then you'll be fucked because you won't be able to do any work for a while and you have no money coming in. So go on, David, thoughts?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's great. But I mean, it's like all of these things. If you're working so many hours a week, and then you've got, 2 or 3 hours each end traveling time on it, that's what eats you up, because they're the quiet moments where you're on your own in the van or in the car or on your luxury yacht or wherever you are, but you're still alone.
Yeah.
And then and you're away from your family, and you're away from life as such, and then straight back out and doing it all again.
No break.
Yeah, just think it's a balance, isn't it? I mean, there's so many sort of funny remarks about funny stories about money. I mean, that was Spike Milligan. He famously said, money doesn't make you happy, but it makes being miserable a lot easier. And we're obsessed with it. But the older I get, the more that I realize that it's not money that I should be cherishing, but time.
Yeah.
Because that's what I still don't have.
Yeah.
It's
experience.
The older you get, the louder that clock ticks.
This is where from an article I wrote, I think it was last year, and talked about this very subject of, sometimes you'll look back, and of course we'll all maybe do work or jobs that we look back and think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But at the time you did the best with what offers and information and salary you had. But one of the chaps who comes to events, and Alan would have met him, a guy called John, he was an engineer at some of the big car places like Aston Martin. He was an engineer there. And he emailed me one day and he said, something you said, he used to commute, I think, an hour and a half every day, driving wise. And that was the minimum all the way to work. And then I think sometimes you might stay out of a night because it was easier. And you end up coming home and realizing one day that you've missed, you'd end up sleeping in the car at service stations because you were so tired.
Yeah.
You'd miss kids' birthdays. You'd miss this or that. And he said, you look back and think, was it all worth it?
Yeah. I mean, when I was living in the UK, I was repping. I used to go away on a Monday morning and come back on a Thursday night, sometimes mostly Friday afternoons.
Yeah.
Because that was the only way to do it.
But it's
and that's not healthy in any way, shape, or form. It's all right, when you're young, free, and single. But the moment that you commit to somebody, and more importantly, that they commit to you, because they have no idea. They don't know what as my friend always calls me, an entrepreneur. They don't know what us entrepreneurs do. They don't know what it costs.
Yeah,
we have to pay a huge fee every day for that luxury to put that title behind our names.
This is why it comes back to many years ago. And I'm now friends with him. I used to listen to a podcast, and he used to speak about the importance of designing your ideal life. And he said, maybe you'll never get to live your ideal life, if that makes sense. But at least if you've analysed, said, do I want to work for someone else? Do I want to have to travel 2 hours a day? Do I want to have to fucking ask permission for time off? All those different things. And that's why I always encourage guys to say, listen, even if someone's listening to this and they're like, I'm stuck in a situation where I'm working my bollocks off and I'm working long hours and stuff, the first key is awareness. Because if you don't even look at where you are in life, then you'll just keep doing it. But if you're aware of something needs to change, at least start with that and then have a conversation with someone. And one thing, and Nick might find this as well, I've found with different guys that I speak to that are entrepreneurs, they'll say it's hard to speak to people that have got jobs because they don't understand. Nick,
they don't, Anthony. They don't. Sorry, they don't understand. If it's like if you've never ridden a horse and all people are giving you all horsey stories, yeah.
So Nick, well, who do you talk to, Nick? Like, if you've got stuff going on, because it's also hard if you own or run a company, because you can't necessarily speak to people in a business sense lower than you in the hierarchy, because they're looking at you thinking you're supposed to have your shit together.
Yeah. It's really interesting, Anthony. I've got two questions for you. So within the team, I try and keep sort of like the senior management team, and we've tried to go against that idea of cowboys don't cry. We're not allowed to. So we really do share a large portion of what's going on in the life, because I also believe the fact that no matter what's going on in your personal life, it's going to affect your business life. What's happening in business is going to happen personal. And Alan was talking about that, the stew where everything's combined. And so the space to be able to talk about that needs to be there. And so we really do cultivate that as much as what we can within the space that, the time that's allotted. And I try and spend time with the team, certainly senior management, just to actually go to their houses or whatever, where you can actually get, when you look at entrepreneurship and certainly in business, it's not, we're talking about it. How does the person affect the family, or how's it affected by the family? People don't realize how much, even with normal jobs, not just entrepreneurs, is the fact that the family supports the business. The family supports that person in the business. So technically the family is supporting the business. And often business owners don't realize that, and they haven't even cognized the fact that, hang on, every time that you're expecting that person to be at work early, every time you're expecting, or the client is expecting, whatever that might be, and they are adhering to that, you're affecting someone else on the end. That child is having less time with that person. That spouse is having less time with that person. And so, often I'll go to the family and thank the family for their support of the business, because that's actually where that it has a knock-on effect. And what I actually wanted to ask is, Alan, on your experience, because Anthony was saying the fact that you particularly deal with women in your space, what does that look like when it comes to women in business? And there's two things that are really really sort of burning questions for me. Number one is this. I'm not too sure how they pitch it. The women have had to almost fit into a male stereotype of what should be a successful person in business. So the only successful person we have is a male carbon copy, as it were. So my view is that they often try and fit into that. And that's a question what is your experience? And then secondly, are you seeing that women are starting to take more ownership of being a woman in business? And I've got, funny enough, I'm actually surrounded by mostly women, because they're so strong and so good at what they do, and I'm really crap at admin. They're really good at the fine details. How do you find that in your space? What is your experience?
It's a good question. So, a bit of background first. Firstly, I'm not sure how aware you guys or the listeners are of all the talk about masculine and feminine energy these days. I know that masculine's got a lot of negative press, which it really doesn't deserve. But every single human being has both those energies within us. The traditional work environment is geared up for the masculine. So when they enter that world, if you like, become more masculine, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, if she wants to then go home and be in that nurturing, loving, feminine for her husband and the kids, unless she's taught that or shown how to do that, it becomes very, very difficult. And if she's also married to a masculine man, then you've got these two masculine energies, and they don't really gel together. It's a bit like two north poles on the magnet. They push each other away. Whereas if one or the other would flip around into the feminine, then they attract each other again. What happens a lot of the time is the men will flip around into their feminine, start saying, yes, dear, because they want her to be happy. But ultimately, deep inside, she needs him to be in that masculine so that she can feel safe, special, and seen to be in her own feminine energy. When that happens, then magic happens.
Good answer.
Yeah, you're talking my language, man. You're talking my language. I think it's really, really interesting to because I listen to women. I mean, like I said, I'm connected to a lot of women, but their struggles are they aren't seen in a male space, and so they're struggling, and I'm seeing they're struggling with this male, almost like, And it's not even the people in the room. Like, they talk about, sitting in a boardroom and knocking up against the glass ceiling and knocking up against these preconceived ideas. And I don't doubt that they're there. So I'm not trying to say that they're not there. But very often I hear them knocking up against things which are actually self-imposed or potentially imposed by, them, they, whoever them and they are. And I was quite interested, like, how do you see them do that? Or how do they process that with you? Or how do you process that? Because I understand the male-female energy. I love that, by the way, because it's so interesting to play with that in yourself and others, and to see how the male is almost, the male-female has to sort of even itself out, and we've got hundreds of years of quelling the female, so there is problems there. But the overkick is a bit of a problem for males, and I think we need to just understand that and be sensitive to that. But how do you see that play out in business, where they almost like, those imposed things on them, and then how do you deal with them, and how does they deal with them?
That's a good question. A lot of it comes down to communication with them, listening to them so they actually feel seen with me. Otherwise, it's just another space where they're not seen. And just to answer another dynamic to your question, how many guys in the workplace don't feel seen? Because a lot of the places I've worked, it's the overachievers, the ones that are committed to making more money for the company, they get seen. And the arse kissers get seen. And the rest kind of blend into the background apart from the troublemaker. And it doesn't matter what the gender those people are, they're the ones that get seen.
Thoughts on that, Nick?
Yeah, I'm fascinated on those, because I think there's so much, particularly working with with teams and that, like when it comes to the unconscious drivers, understanding unconscious drivers in the team as well as clients, and it's fascinating to watch that. And if you, again, I talk about being a conscious entrepreneur, man, it's tough, because talking to Dave and actually Anthony, the reason why, my personal opinion and experience, is that we drive so hard is because you're trying to fill a pot, we're trying to fill a hole, we're actually trying to repair, heal ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why we drive so hard. We all want to paint it with this bullshit of, I'm doing it for my family, and I want more money, and I want to go onto the yacht and all that bullshit. My experience is it's not that. There's a hole deep inside us that needs to be filled, or that we want to fill, and we think that this particular thing is going to fill that. And until you realize that actually nothing's going to fill that other than yourself, and you being able to fill that, it then changes the outlook on what you do and how you do it and how you deal with people in business and your teams and clients.
David?
I'm still on the journey, by the way. Like I'm proper on the journey. Like there's nowhere now. I haven't arrived at anything. It's just I think
it's a never-ending journey, to be honest. David, thoughts on that?
Well, two things really. First of all, Alan, probably, I don't know if it's me or that everybody's having a bit of a problem with your microphone this week, but you must come back on in the next couple of weeks. We're going to do a show just on being a love engineer, because we haven't even touched on that today. So that's an open invite. So please do that.
Yeah.
I think Nick's right. It's an inadequacy that we have, or a pebble in your shoe or whatever. And it doesn't matter how many people you work for, they don't fill that hole. And so there's something which thinks, I'll just do that. Maybe I think if you're not an entrepreneur as well, maybe you're just incredibly curious, and that curiosity is what Nick was alluding to. This hole has to be filled. You're always trying to work something out. How do I do this? How do I do that? Because there's nobody you can ask, because you've chosen not to ask them. And not saying that you, like Nick has a great team, I'm sure of it. And I've had a lot of experience with Nick and his team, so I know they do great stuff. But at the end of the day, it's just think, how does that quite work? Or how do I do this? Or how do I do that? And that's that curiosity which keeps us all moving forward. And that's self-consuming as well, of course, you know. So we're back to what Alan was alluding to. You know, this just being yourself excludes, and the success of being yourself, and that success of being yourself then you're an entrepreneur or a top sportsman or whatever. You know, I mean, top sports people have the same problems as entrepreneurs. You know, they look at the wake of poo that they leave behind them in relationships. You know, so yeah. Anyway, we'll come back to another show for that because you know, time's eluding us this week, I think.
I was going to say, before we go into Lost and Found, for me, one of the big things, and it sounds obvious, but it comes back to like understanding your why. And if you're a guy who hasn't got kids and a family, maybe you can work more because you don't have to create space for them. But, you know, if you're chasing the money and the house and the private school and the car and everything like that, which is all nice things to have, but you can't do it at the detriment of your family life, because, you know, those things, you'll realize the older and wiser you get, those things mean fuck all. Whereas, like, as David said, time, and for me, experiences count for a lot. And I'll just drop in very quickly, just to impress you. Of course, when I worked in the city, I had zero flexibility at all. It was Monday to Friday. Unless you had a day off, that was it. But today I took my two sons swimming for an hour this morning. And I felt it's like weird, because you're looking around, you're like, I'm doing something that, you know, it's so alien to me even now to be just like taking the morning off to take your kids swimming. So anyway, David, let's, you're going to run first. Alan might want we need Lost.
Yeah, we're going to do two things. Before we do Lost and Found, we have a member. We're just going to run a very short little advert, because we have somebody who's been on the channel a few times. We call her the Candle Lady, and her husband's sick at the moment. So we're just going to run a very quick campaign for her. This like 30 seconds. So we just do that, and then we'll come back for it. We'll go straight into Lost and Found. So here we go.
Hi, this is Stephen from 2OF Entertainment. And one of our family members, Michelle the Candle Lady's husband, is having a little problem. He has stage 2 cancer, and they've had a GoFundMe fund to help him pay his medical expenses. So we're asking you, fans of the 2OF Entertainment channel, if you can find $1 here or there to possibly give him a little bit of money for his stage 2 cancer and help him through it. And then thoughts and prayers are with him. And once again, thank you for being part of the 2OF family.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of something that we want to do for them. And now Lost and Found, I think.
Just run it.
Ever wonder how millions vanish into thin air, or how a single dollar can make all the difference? Join us on Lost and Found, where we dive into the wild world of financial mysteries. From misplaced fortunes to unexpected windfalls, we unravel the stories of people, companies, organizations, and even governments who've lost and found millions. Lost and Found, because every dollar has a story.
Beautiful.
There you go.
I find myself now, whenever I'm gazing the news, which is all dread-filled anyway, but I see lots of Lost and Found around. So, Nick, do you want to go first?
Yeah, please. I'm able to share my screen here, Dave. I just click on the share screen, right?
Yeah.
Let's pop that. And
Better be a good one.
We're gonna go. What I'm seeing, this one.
No, we've got nothing coming up. You maybe have to. So next time I've preload this stuff. So.
Yeah, no, we've got it. We've got it. Just hang on. Here we go. There we go. Are you seeing my my word? It's not as pretty as yours, Dave.
Oh, here we go. We'll just add it to the. Then we just add it to the stage. Here we go.
100%. Cool. So the found dollars. Old President Trump has just had one of the an appeal overturned. So he was in for $500 million, and that penalty's been tossed out. So I think that's a bit of a found dollar. He was potentially under Sorry, yeah, 100%. And the second one I found, unfortunately, WH Smith lost 600 million due to a 30 million accounting error. So one of their subsidiaries gave a incorrect accounting, or there was some accounting challenges that came through, and unfortunately that affected the markets, and they lost 600 million. So that's a proper heavy loss there.
Whoops.
There you go. That's them done.
I always love stuff like that, because like, how have you managed to get that so wrong? And who sat there one day and was like, like, Dave, you got a minute? Yeah, can you just have a look at this?
Yeah. Yeah, you remember that 300 million we had? Well, it's gone, mate. It's gone.
I might have knobbed it. Well, I'll go next if that's all right. David.
Yeah, I know. You normally leave all mine till last, because mine's not always the most serious aspect.
My contentious up on screen.
There we go.
So I know no one here will know what OnlyFans is, just like you won't know what Pornhub is. Promise. But I saw that OnlyFans, the owner, who I think is, trying to think what his name is. It might be on the next slide. A Jewish chap who's been paid 700 million in dividends as the platform is about to be sold. And I think it's, in fact, as I say, if there isn't a cashback for that, then nothing can be. My big question is, why would you want 700 million, as if that would make you happy? But you can sure do some good shit with it. But David, if you can put up the other slide that uploaded as well. Owner of OnlyFans has paid a record $700 million. It's only 520 million pounds, 23 million. So it's nothing really.
There you go. That definitely gets that then.
The payment to old Radvinsky, and it says Ukrainian American entrepreneur, but I'm pretty sure he's Jewish. But just there must be a typo. But adds to the more than 1 billion in dividends he's already received from the business. If nothing else, that's been one hell of a business, if that makes sense. So I find it very interesting that there is, there's money in muck, if that makes sense. But anyway, so moving on, David, you're next.
Yeah, where there's muck, there's money. That's what I used to say. So mine, I always try and try to bring something really sensible into this show, because sometimes it gets a bit too ridiculous. So this is mine, and I'll leave it up to you to tell me whether or not you think it's either a lost or a found dollar. Here you go. This is my contribution this week. This is a 3D print, which you can print out yourself and turn your keyboard into a cheese board. There you go. Only on this show. Done by a Dutch designer. Is it a found dollar or a lost dollar? You tell me.
I think that's a found dollar. That would be the kind of thing when I worked in the city, when we'd like bored and want to spend money on unnecessary stuff, we would probably just ship something like that in.
There you go. But you'd have to download this yourself, and then
And if someone's listening,
I think you're gonna
give you a better view of that. There you go. Have a look at that. Look.
No, but I think you're gonna be permanently hungry, right? So I think you're gonna literally reach for the cookies or the whatever's around you to eat, because I mean this is beautiful. It makes me hungry already. It's not gonna go well for them.
I just hope that the creator of it has been inclusive by creating a dairy-free option. Because there'll be someone offended by it.
Please.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, of course, is you've got all these the entered keys and everything. They're all done in the shapes of little cheese knives and stuff like that. Anyway, you did found dollar, lost dollar. You tell me, guys. Go on.
I like it. I'm going found.
Found. Nick.
I'm going to go for found, but man, the poor guys with the health challenges.
There you go. And for you, Alan, something you'd like to have it.
I'd probably give it a miss myself, partly because the other half has got dairy allergy. So.
Okay, so let's. It's 3-1. So what difference?
You fucked it, Alan. It was we were on for a clean sweep then. Well, funny enough, I mean, to end the show on the least technical thing of a cheese board that is shaped like a keyboard. Next week it will get quite a lot more technical, because we've talked about cryptocurrency, which and we're going to split that into two conversations, and I'm going to give you that, which is mainstream crypto and privacy coin crypto, because they are two very different beasts. And the chap coming on is UK based, but has some good thoughts on it. So, and I know crypto is like one of those things that it triggers some people, because even when I post about it on LinkedIn, I've had some people that act as if they know exactly what's going to happen to Bitcoin. And I'm like, you haven't got a fucking clue. So we shall see. It should be a good one for next week.
It should be. And, on a romantic note, that's how Nick and I actually came to know each other.
Right.
Over a bromance over crypto. There you go.
From all over the world together in crypto harmony, to be honest.
Yeah.
But Alan, I appreciate you coming on, brother. And again, you're part of my network, which is important to me, and hopefully it's valuable to you as well. And we'll be dragging you back on the show at some point, because we've got
definitely. He has to have his home show. The whole show would just be called The Love Engineer, because anybody who dares to call themselves that has to have a little bit more time than we're giving him today.
Yeah. I like it. And as always with people, well, firstly, David, Nick and Alex, great to spend some time with you guys. And remember, for anybody else, for you, if you're watching, listening, we'd love you to subscribe. Who's calling me? I'm popular. Actually, the man that's just phoning me is going to be on the podcast soon, because he's got an enormous online personal development business. So he's probably trying to book in a slot. Yeah. But yes, remember to like and subscribe, obviously, but we'd love you to comment on any parts of the show today. If you find work-life balance hard or anything like that, comment, and we'll love to hear from you, basically.
Yeah, and I was just about to cut you off after you said enormous, but you carried on from that. So until next week, everybody, have a great time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.